Well, let's go live now to the Deputy Opposition Leader, Sussan Ley. Sussan, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. So let's kick off with power prices today. They are expected to rise for hundreds of thousands of consumers. It was coming, but this will stretch budgets even further, won't it?
Well, good morning, Pete. And what this confirms is under this Labor government, everything is going up except your wages. And this latest hit to energy costs for households and small businesses will really hurt. The Shadow Cabinet has been out and about in Victoria. I've been to regional South Australia recently, and when I talk to small businesses, they are genuinely concerned. This is going to be a hit to them, and they're opening this mail. They're seeing the cost of energy for light manufacturing, for running their freezers, for making ice cream, for cooking pizza, and, you know, it's really going to hurt.
Everything going up except your wages. I think I've heard that one before. Are you turning that one around on the government?
Well, Anthony Albanese did promise that real wages would go up under his government. It was one of a list of promises he made coming into the last election. And the energy one, of course, has been broken, $275 reduction in your power bill. And so it goes on. But what we have to look at, Pete, is the effect this has on small businesses, because the role they play in economic recovery, in economic contribution, in the lives of our small communities, in our regional communities, in our big cities, is a really important one. And I just feel it's being ignored by Anthony Albanese and his government. Well,
I mean, looking at some customers, particularly in Victoria, just going through some of these numbers, they're looking at plus 25% increases, those on variable power contracts. That's $500 to $600 a year. That's money extra that they're going to have to find, aren't they? I mean, can businesses survive that, Sussan?
Well, some of them are saying that they're going to have to look really closely at their bottom line. And I don't want to say glibly that businesses won't survive, Pete, because we want every single business to survive. And we care about every single small business. And the fact that in these difficult times, they get up, they go to work, they're there, fronting that business, you know, sometimes 20 hours a day with everything else that's going on. And many of these small businesses are led by women. They're women I meet, I admire, I think are pretty incredible. And when they tell me they've opened their recent power bill or they've come off a variable contract, it's pretty hard to see how some of these numbers are going to add up. So another broken promise by this government, another failure of the most central and important promise, which was to leave no one behind.
Much of this, though, down to international factors that are out of the government's control. No doubt it will respond with that today. It says that prices more than likely won't come down until July. Is that good enough?
Of course it's not good enough, and they're wheeling out the same lame excuses. In fact, after the war in Ukraine began, they gave that undertaking that your power price would come down. So, you know, it's really, it doesn't work to make those excuses.
Right. But as for price caps,
matters is what they do now.
Doesn't it?
Price caps, interfering in the gas market, poor relationship with power companies. It's all added up. Rush legislation, by the way, towards the end of last year. It all shows that their priorities are not on affordable, reliable power for everyday households and businesses. Their priorities are elsewhere.
So what would you be doing straight away? Because, I mean, price caps is really the only quick fix that's available.
Well, we've always said getting more supply into the gas market is vital. And clearly, having a bad relationship with the suppliers of that gas is a really poor place to start. We've always said supply is important.
Sussan, new detail out this morning on The Voice. Indigenous leaders want 6 months to establish an advisory body after the referendum. How many on that body won't be worked out, though, until mid-next year, and the Voice to Parliament might not even be operational until after the next federal election, so there's definitely no rush there. Is that enough to get you on the Yes campaign?
Well, there's not enough detail, and the long stretched out timeline of consultation and wait and see and, 2 years' time is only underscoring the inability of Anthony Albanese to actually answer basic questions. Now, Peter Dutton has written with 15 questions. They're quite sensible questions, and they're the sorts of questions I get asked when I meet people around the country and They say what's going on with the voice, who will be on this elected body, will they be appointed, how will regional communities be represented, will it deliver services, how will different points of view be reflected, because all Indigenous communities don't think exactly the same about every single issue, and nor should they. So these are sensible questions. They haven't been answered. Now, Peter Dutton and Julian Leeser, our Indigenous Affairs shadow spokesperson, will attend the meetings that are happening, I think, tomorrow in good faith.
Right.
But that detail is detail we're asking for on behalf of everyday Australians who will vote in this referendum.
So do you think all of this detail needs to be worked out still before the referendum, or are you open to the answers to these questions being available or worked on after the referendum?
Enough detail has not been provided, and it's not good enough for Anthony Albanese to spend 3 days at the tennis. By the way, nothing wrong with going to the tennis, sucking down beers and eating ice creams. He failed the basic test of an issue that is at the heart of much of this: voice, Indigenous Australians, violence in remote communities. The priorities were all wrong, and what that showed Australians is that he's not paying attention to the things that matter for our Indigenous communities: women's safety, children's safety, safety on the streets. You know, as I've said, Pete, and many have observed to me, some of those tennis matches went for longer than the time he spent on the ground in Alice Springs, and he wasn't there to really see and understand the pain that community is experiencing.
Right, but back to the referendum, Amina, are you open to some of this detail being worked on after the referendum, or do you think that this all needs to be sorted out before Australians actually go to vote?
Peter Dutton and Julian Leeser will attend those briefings. I don't know what those briefings will contain, and nor do they, because they haven't happened yet, in good faith.
Right.
And
but it seems like people should know this stuff before they go and vote, though, right?
Well, they're questions that ordinary Australians are asking us. I'm a parliamentarian, my colleagues are parliamentarians, everyone votes in the referendum. Our founding fathers, when it came to constitutional reform, said every Australian should have a say. This shouldn't be all about politicians. It certainly shouldn't be about politicians saying, leave it to us and we'll decide later and give you the detail later.
All right,
so
Sussan,
much more detail needs to be explained.
Sussan Ley, we're out of time. Appreciate your time, though. You've got to catch a flight, I know, so we'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you.